Humphrey Bogart. Before 1941, Humphrey Bogart was stuck in a cinematic rut. Hollywood's go-to tough guy for supporting gangster roles, but never the leading man. He was gritty, sharp, and undeniably compelling, yet the industry couldn't see past the trench coats and Tommy guns. That all changed with The Maltese Falcon. In a single stroke, Bogart went from a reliable character actor to the face of film noir, redefining what a leading man could be. His portrayal of Sam Spade wasn't just a performance, it was a transformation. Spade was cynical, sharp-witted, and morally ambiguous, a far cry from the clean-cut heroes of the era. Audiences had never seen anything like it, and neither had Hollywood. The film's rapid-fire dialogue, shadow-drenched cinematography, and John Huston's razor-sharp direction created a perfect storm. And at its center was Bogart, delivering lines like, "the stuff that dreams are made of," with an effortless cool that would become his signature. Critics raved, audiences flocked, and just like that, Bogart wasn't just another actor, he was a star. The film's success at the box office proved that audiences were hungry for something darker, something sharper, something real. And Bogart, he was more than ready to deliver. The very next year, he landed Casablanca, and the rest, as they say, is legend. Marilyn Monroe. Before Niagara, Marilyn Monroe was just another pretty face in Hollywood. Modeling gigs, minor roles, and a few fleeting moments on screen. But then came 1953, and with it the film that changed everything. Niagara wasn't just a movie, it was a statement. Monroe's smoldering performance as the unfaithful Rose Loomis was unlike anything audiences had seen from her before. She wasn't just a bombshell, she was dangerous, hypnotic, impossible to look away from. The film's marketing leaned into her allure, plastering Monroe's image across posters with taglines that practically dripped with innuendo. And it worked! The box office exploded, and overnight, Monroe became Hollywood's most sought-after star. But fame wasn't just about the numbers. Suddenly, she was a cultural phenomenon. Her signature walk, her breathy voice, that iconic red dress, every detail was dissected, imitated, and obsessed over. Before Niagara, she was just another actress trying to make it. After, she was Marilyn Monroe, and the world would never see her the same way again. James Dean. In the mid-1950s, James Dean was just another struggling actor, bouncing between minor TV roles and forgettable film appearances, but then came Rebel Without a Cause, a film that didn't just launch his career, it cemented him as the face of teenage rebellion. Dean's portrayal of Jim Stark, a restless, misunderstood youth, wasn't just acting. It felt raw, lived in, almost autobiographical. His quiet intensity, the way he slouched into a scene, the barely contained rage simmering under his words, it resonated with an entire generation of post-war teens searching for identity. The film's neon-soaked visuals, the iconic red jacket, the tragic knife fights in the dark, every frame pulsed with angst and authenticity. And then before Rebel even hit theaters, Dean was gone. A fatal car crash at just 24 sealed his fate, turning him into a legend before he had the chance to see his own superstardom. The film became more than just a box office success. It was a eulogy, a time capsule of youthful defiance frozen forever in Technicolor. Even now, decades later, Dean's influence lingers. His smirk, his style, his restless energy, they're echoed in every Hollywood rebel that followed. 3 films. That's all he had. And yet, his shadow still stretches across cinema like a ghost that refuses to fade. Audrey Hepburn. Before Roman Holiday, Audrey Hepburn was a relative unknown, a ballet-trained performer with a handful of theater roles and minor film appearances. But everything changed in 1953 when she stepped into the role of Princess Anne, a sheltered royal who escapes her duties for a day of freedom in Rome. Starring opposite Gregory Peck, Hepburn brought an effortless grace and charm that Hollywood hadn't quite seen before. What's even more fascinating is that Peck, already an established star, saw her potential before anyone else. He insisted her name be billed alongside his, a rare move for a newcomer. And he was right. Her performance was nothing short of magnetic. Critics and audiences alike were enchanted, and the film became an instant classic. The Academy agreed, awarding Hepburn the Oscar for Best Actress. Overnight, she became a global sensation, setting the stage for an iconic career that would include Breakfast at Tiffany's and My Fair Lady. But Roman Holiday wasn't just a breakout role, it was the moment Audrey Hepburn became a legend. Clark Gable. Before Clark Gable became the undisputed king of Hollywood, He was just another rising star, stuck playing tough guys and villains. But then came It Happened One Night in the early 1930s, a film that no one expected to change the course of his career. Gable had been loaned out to Columbia Pictures as a punishment by MGM, a studio that didn't quite know what to do with him yet. And then, in a twist of fate, he landed the role of roguish newspaper reporter Peter Warne. What happened next? A performance so effortlessly charismatic, so full of wit and charm, that it didn't just win him an Academy Award, it redefined the romantic leading man for generations. His chemistry with Claudette Colbert was electric, their rapid-fire banter setting the gold standard for screwball comedies. The film itself was a dark horse, a low-budget production that no one expected to make waves, but audiences fell hard for Gable's devil-may-care attitude and razor-sharp delivery. It Happened One Night didn't just succeed, it swept the Academy Awards, becoming one of the first films to win Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Actress, and Best Screenplay. And suddenly, Gable wasn't just a working actor, he was a legend. After this, he was no longer the bad guy or the second lead. He was the man every studio wanted, the face that would go on to define Hollywood's golden age. 5 years later, he cemented his status with Gone with the Wind, but it was It Happened One Night that made him royalty. Elizabeth Taylor. Before A Place in the Sun, Elizabeth Taylor was still seen as the wide-eyed child star from National Velvet. Hollywood adored her, but the industry wasn't sure if she could transition into serious adult roles. That all changed in 1951 when she stepped onto the screen opposite Montgomery Clift. Suddenly, she wasn't just a former child actress, she was a revelation. Her performance as the stunning and emotionally complex Angela Vickers turned heads. Critics praised her dramatic depth and audiences couldn't take their eyes off her. The film itself was a triumph, winning 6 Academy Awards and cementing Taylor as a leading lady. But it wasn't just the accolades. Her undeniable chemistry with Clift and the film's intoxicating mix of romance and tragedy made her Hollywood's new obsession. In the years that followed, she became one of the most sought-after actresses of the decade, starring in Giant alongside James Dean and eventually commanding record-breaking salaries. A Place in the Sun wasn't just a career milestone, it was the moment Elizabeth Taylor became a legend. Paul Newman. Before Paul Newman became a Hollywood icon, he was just another struggling actor trying to escape the shadow of James Dean. The two shared a striking resemblance, and with Dean's tragic passing in the mid-1950s, Newman found himself constantly compared to the late star. But then came Somebody Up There Likes Me in 1956, a gritty boxing drama that would change everything. Newman stepped into the role of real-life boxer Rocky Graziano, bringing a raw intensity that made audiences sit up and take notice. His piercing blue eyes, rugged charm, and undeniable charisma electrified the screen, proving he was more than just a Dean lookalike. He was a star in his own right. The film was a box office hit, and suddenly Newman was Hollywood's newest leading man. Critics raved about his performance, praising his ability to balance toughness with vulnerability. This was the role that set the stage for his legendary career, paving the way for classics like Cool Hand Luke and The Hustler. But what many don't know is that Newman wasn't even the first choice for the part. James Dean was originally cast before his untimely passing. Newman took the opportunity and ran with it, delivering a performance that not only honored Dean's legacy, but firmly established his own. From that moment on, he wasn't just another actor, he was Paul Newman, the man who would define cool for generations to come. Sophia Loren. Before Sophia Loren became an international icon, she was just another promising actress in Italian cinema, making a name for herself in small roles in beauty contests. But in 1954, everything changed. Vittorio De Sica's anthology film, The Gold of Naples, wasn't just a showcase of post-war Italian life, it was a launchpad for Loren's superstardom. Playing a flirtatious pizza vendor in one of the film's vignettes, Loren didn't just turn heads. She commanded the screen with a magnetic mix of sensuality and humor. Audiences couldn't look away, and neither could Hollywood. The film's success put her on the radar of major studios, leading to a contract with Paramount Pictures and a fast track to global fame. Within years, she was starring alongside the biggest names in the industry, but it was her devastatingly raw performance in Two Women in 1960 that cemented her legacy. She became the first actor to win an Academy Award for a foreign language role, proving she was more than just a striking face. She was a powerhouse. Loren later admitted she never expected such a meteoric rise, recalling how she once doubted if her distinct Italian features would translate to Hollywood glamour. But Hollywood didn't just accept her, it revered her. And it all started with a simple, unforgettable role in The Gold of Naples. Charlton Heston. Before Charlton Heston became the face of epic cinema, he was just another working actor, taking roles wherever he could. He had appeared in a handful of films, but none had made him a household name. That all changed in the mid-1950s, when legendary director Cecil B. DeMille cast him as Moses in The Ten Commandments. It was a gamble. Heston wasn't yet a major star, but DeMille saw something in him. A presence, a voice, a gravitas that could carry the weight of one of the grandest biblical stories ever put to film. And he was right. The film was a massive success, pulling in record-breaking numbers at the box office and cementing its place as one of the highest-grossing films of all time. But beyond the spectacle, it was Heston's performance that left an indelible mark. His booming voice, his towering stance, the sheer conviction in his delivery. He didn't just play Moses, he became him. The role turned him into Hollywood's go-to leading man for historical and biblical epics. Just 3 years later, he starred in Ben-Hur, a film that not only won 11 Academy Awards, but solidified Heston as a titan of the industry. His sudden ascent to superstardom came with its own set of challenges. He once recalled being overwhelmed by the sheer scale of his fame, going from a working actor to a legend almost overnight. But there was no turning back. With The Ten Commandments, Heston carved his name into Hollywood history, proving that sometimes one role is all it takes to change everything. Grace Kelly. Before Alfred Hitchcock's Dial M for Murder hit theaters in the mid-1950s, Grace Kelly was a promising actress, but she wasn't yet the silver screen royalty she would soon become. She had already turned heads with a supporting role in Mogambo, which even earned her an Academy Award nomination, but it was Hitchcock who saw something more, a quiet intensity beneath her poised elegance. He cast her as Margot Windys, the glamorous yet vulnerable wife caught in a web of deception and danger. The role was tailor-made for Kelly, showcasing her intelligence, grace, and an icy allure that would become her signature. When Dial M for Murder premiered, audiences were captivated. Kelly wasn't just a beautiful actress, she was magnetic. Her performance exuded a refined sophistication, yet she played Margot with enough depth to make her more than just a damsel in distress. Hitchcock, ever the perfectionist, was so enamored with her that he immediately cast her again, this time as the stylish, sharp-witted Lisa Fremont in Rear Window. That film's success cemented her as a Hollywood icon, and by the time she starred opposite Cary Grant in To Catch a Thief, she was officially one of the biggest stars of the era. But Grace Kelly's Hollywood reign was fleeting. Just as she reached the pinnacle of stardom, she walked away from it all, trading film sets for palace halls when she married Prince Rainier of Monaco. It was a shocking move, one that left Hitchcock famously frustrated, as he had envisioned her as his ultimate leading lady. Still, her legacy endured. Decades later, her performances remain timeless, and her influence on fashion, film, and culture continues to shape the image of classic Hollywood glamour. Gene Kelly. Before Anchors Aweigh, Gene Kelly was a rising talent, but Hollywood hadn't quite figured out what to do with him. He had charm, he had skill, but he wasn't yet a box office draw. That all changed in the mid-1940s, when he was paired with Frank Sinatra in a musical that turned him from a promising dancer into a full-fledged Hollywood sensation. Anchors Aweigh wasn't just another wartime musical. It was a dazzling showcase of Kelly's athletic, almost acrobatic dance style and his easygoing charisma. The moment he glided across the screen, audiences saw something different. He wasn't just a dancer, he was a performer who commanded attention. But the real game changer? That now iconic sequence where Kelly dances alongside an animated Jerry Mouse. It was a technical marvel at the time, blending live action with animation in a way that felt seamless and magical. The film was a massive success, earning Kelly his first Academy Award nomination and proving he was more than just a supporting act. From that moment on, he wasn't just a dancer or a sidekick. He was a leading man, paving the way for his legendary turn in Singin' in the Rain years later. Anchors Aweigh didn't just make Gene Kelly a star, it changed the way Hollywood saw musicals, proving they could be both innovative and commercially successful. Ingrid Bergman. Before Casablanca, Ingrid Bergman was a promising talent, but Hollywood hadn't quite figured out what to do with her. She had made a splash in the Swedish film industry and caught the eye of producer David O. Selznick, who brought her to America. But despite critical praise for Intermezzo in the late 1930s, She was still on the fringes of stardom. Then came Casablanca, a film that no one expected to be anything more than another wartime romance. But the moment she stepped on screen as Elsa Lund, everything changed. Her chemistry with Humphrey Bogart was electric, and her luminous, conflicted performance made her unforgettable. The film itself became an instant classic, but for Bergman it was something more. It was the moment Hollywood realized it had a legend in the making. Almost overnight, she was the most sought-after actress in the industry. The success of Casablanca led directly to her roles in Gaslight and Notorious, where she cemented her reputation as one of the greatest actresses of her generation. But what's fascinating is that even Bergman herself didn't anticipate the film's impact. She once admitted that during filming, she wasn't even sure which man Ilsa was supposed to end up with. That uncertainty, that raw emotion, is part of what made her performance so real. And in the years that followed, as Casablanca grew into one of the most beloved films of all time, Bergman's name became synonymous with Golden Age Hollywood itself. Burt Lancaster. Before Burt Lancaster became one of Hollywood's most commanding leading men, he was literally flying through the air, working as a circus acrobat. He had never stepped in front of a film camera when he was cast in The Killers in 1946, but from the moment he appeared on screen, audiences were hooked. His brooding, almost tragic presence as the doomed Swede in this film noir classic made him an overnight sensation. Lancaster's rugged good looks and raw intensity gave him an edge that set him apart from the polished matinee idols of the time. The film, based on an Ernest Hemingway short story, was a dark, atmospheric thriller that captivated post-war audiences. It was a massive success, and overnight, Lancaster went from an unknown to one of the most sought-after actors in Hollywood. Within just a few years, he was headlining major productions, proving he wasn't just a one-hit wonder. By the early 1950s, he had cemented himself as a top-tier star, and in 1953, From Here to Eternity earned him his first Academy Award nomination. The man who once swung from trapezes was now dominating the silver screen, proving that sometimes all it takes is one perfect role to change everything. Deborah Kerr. Before From Here to Eternity, Deborah Kerr had a reputation. Graceful, poised, the very image of British refinement. She was the elegant governess, the dignified aristocrat, always composed, always restrained. But then came that scene, the one that would obliterate her genteel image in a single sultry wave. On a Hawaiian beach, locked in a passionate embrace with Burt Lancaster as the tide crashed around them, Kerr stunned audiences. This wasn't the demure English rose they knew. This was raw, desperate longing, a woman consumed by desire. And just like that, Hollywood saw her in a new light. The film itself was a juggernaut, winning 8 Academy Awards and redefining Kerr's career overnight. No longer confined to playing prim and proper roles, she proved she could handle complex, emotionally charged characters. The industry took notice, and soon she was leading one of the biggest films of the decade, The King and I, in 1956. But it all started with that kiss in the surf, a moment so bold it shattered expectations and turned Deborah Kerr into a true Hollywood powerhouse. Tony Curtis. Before Some Like It Hot, Tony Curtis was a star on the rise, but he wasn't yet a legend. He had the looks, the charm, and a string of solid performances, but Hollywood hadn't quite figured out where he fit. Then came Billy Wilder's 1959 masterpiece, a film so bold, so ahead of its time, it changed comedy forever. Curtis, alongside Jack Lemmon and Marilyn Monroe, delivered a performance that was equal parts suave, ridiculous, and utterly unforgettable. Disguised as a woman to escape the mob, Curtis not only nailed the physical comedy, but also pulled off a spot-on Cary Grant impression when seducing Monroe's character. Audiences ate it up. The film was a massive box office hit, and Curtis proved he could do more than just play the handsome leading man. He had comedic timing, range, and undeniable screen presence. The film cemented his place in Hollywood history. And just 1 year later, he flipped the script again with Spartacus, proving he wasn't just a funny man, he was a star who could do it all. If you've enjoyed this video, please leave a like and comment. Also consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell to get notified of our new videos each week. Thanks for watching.